How's it going, everybody? My name is Kyle O'Grady. I am a thru hiker. I am a peak bagger. I am a backpacker. I'm just a hiking nerd, dude. And every single week on this podcast, I chat with other peak baggers, thru hikers, hiking nerds like myself about their experiences on the trail. And we've got a great honestly, a great episode today. Chad Lubinski joins the show. Chad is a thru hiker. He does like some mountaineering kind of stuff. We talk about that. He does like backcountry, like skiing and snowboard. He does it all, dude. I'm telling you, we didn't even get to cover everything, so I'm gonna have to have him back on. But this was a great chat. We talk about his adventure on the Muir Trail, the Colorado Trail, and a bunch of other stuff. We talk about being content creators a little bit in this weird outdoor space towards the end of the episode. It was awesome, and like I said, I want to get him back on soon. So Chad, when you hear this, dude, thank you so much for coming on. I'm going to get into the episode here in just a second. First, I just want to say, for those of you that listen to the show regularly, I know I've been slacking a little bit. I haven't posted very much, but I promise you, the show is still a thing. It's still coming out, and if you're sick of dealing with the inconsistencies, I'm sorry. I've been moving a lot. Excuses, but don't worry, the show's not going anywhere. We're going to be back at it. All right, let's get into it. Episode number 139 with Chad Lubinski. All right, here we go. Chad Lubinski. I nailed it, didn't I?
Perfect.
I was getting a little cocky there, but I think I did well. Dude, you just moved into a new house like today, right? Or yesterday or some shit?
Oh my gosh, dude. It has been a nightmare. We went from Oregon to Wyoming, and basically the apartment we signed on was, what do they call it? We were catfished.
You were catfished, bro. What happened? How do you get catfished at an apartment?
So, well, here's the deal. We're moving from out of state, right? And they put out these pictures, looked real nice and edited. They had real nice lighting, all that stuff. And we're like, whatever, dude, signed. We needed to find something super quick, right?
Yeah.
And so we're just like, screw it, we're going to do this. And I get there before my girlfriend because we were taking two separate cars there. And I get there before her. And I walk in and I like look around and I'm like, oh my God, what did we just do? And I text her and I'm like, hey, we're going to need some of your decorating. Because it looked like my college, guy house that we had back in 2014, right? The holes in the walls, stuff on the walls, terrible smell. She gets in and it was, we were looking for a new apartment that night, essentially.
Man.
And yeah. And so thankfully we had one of those U-Haul pods that was like on the way to us, but like it was actually delayed. So it actually didn't get to that first apartment. And so by the time we ended up moving to the second one, it actually got delivered there. So we didn't have to like remove everything all at the same time. But yeah, dude, it was quite a show.
So I wasn't sure, like when you said you got catfished, I wasn't sure if it was like you showed up and there just wasn't an apartment there. So at least there was a roof over your head, but that does sound pretty brutal. But we're going to talk about the outdoors in a second, folks, don't worry. But I've never heard of someone who got catfished with an apartment. So at least you were able to find another one pretty quick, huh?
Here's the thing, man. It's like there was no way that they could rent it out to someone that was local, because they would go in there and show them it and they'd be like, no way. And so it had to be. So the weirdest thing about this entire thing was like this quadplex or whatever it was. Everybody was from out of state.
Oh,
geez. So it's kind of like they gamed the system there. So yeah, man. So, but we ended up getting a prorated rent out of it and a whole thing. So it wasn't too bad, but
you're settled in now. And Wyoming, I've never been to Wyoming, but I've always been kind of fascinated by it because it seems like it'd be a pretty cool, like outdoorsy, I don't know where even in the state you are, but like it seems like it'd be a pretty cool outdoorsy place, but there's also like not that many people there, which I kind of like too. So it's definitely on my radar. I would really like to visit at some point.
Well, when you do the CDT, right?
Yeah,
you're gonna have to go through it.
That's right. That's going to happen at some point. But dude, thank you so much for doing this. Can you just like go ahead and kind of introduce yourself? What you've hiked, I guess, because this is a hiking podcast, but I know you've done a lot of, I mean, I was looking through your Instagram and stuff, like you've done it seems like you kind of do it all in terms of like outdoor stuff, to be honest. But anyways, introduce yourself, what you've hiked, dude. Just tell the people what you're all about.
Yeah, man. Well, thank you. Thank you for having me on. Yeah, so I've done some through hikes, just the John Muir Trail northbound, and then the Colorado Trail the year after that, which actually funny thing is when I was finishing up the JMT, I actually was listening to your podcast where you interviewed somebody that just did the CT.
Oh.
And that's kind of what inspired me to get onto the CT.
Really? Was it Scott? Was it Scott Hughes?
I think, it was him, because then I actually got on his podcast like a few months later. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yep. Honestly, dude, I had a friend text me the other day being like, oh, like I just listened to like your episode with Scott Hughes on the Colorado Trail. And I was like, dude, I don't even, actually, he didn't say his name. He just said the Colorado Trail. And I was like, dude, I don't even remember that episode. And then he was like, it was with Scott Hughes. And I was like, oh yeah. So that worked out well, because I would not have remembered what episode that was when you just said that there if I hadn't had that conversation yesterday. But anyways, you've also done like a lot of like ultra running and like ultramarathons and stuff. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what was it? 2020, I did the JMT. 2021, I did the Colorado Trail. And then in 2022, I was a little bit burnt out of thru hiking, which sounds really funny when that was only like, a combination of like 600 miles.
No, it's fair though. It's fair.
Like yeah. Yeah. And so I was like, okay, I want to switch it up a little bit. So I kind of banged out basically all of like the major Cascade volcanoes like Rainier, Hood, Baker, and all those, and then also signed up for a 100-mile ultra, which I finished with 30 minutes to spare from the cutoff.
Oh wow! Oh shit!
Yeah, dude, it was crazy. But I essentially what I did was because I hate running, obviously.
Dude, you ran 100 miles. What are you talking about?
Exactly. But the thing is I was using all of the mountaineering, like Rainier and all those things, like as my training for the 100-miler. Mm-hmm. So I was really only running like 3 days a week. But like on the weekends, I would just do like these huge days. Like we did Rainier like in a day in 20.5 hours or something. And it was like, you got the sleep deprivation,
yeah.
that whole thing that I knew I was going to need for the 100. So I really think that was a huge hack for me, was like doing these big days on the mountain.
Interesting. See, I wasn't sure what direction you were going to take that. I wasn't sure if you were going to say like, I wish I had just strictly stuck to trail running, because the actual race itself is,
right.
Trail running, obviously. It's not quite the same scenario, but one of my good friends and hiking partner, Flossie, who's been on the show a bunch, been on a lot of the videos, he ran an ultra back in September of 2021. It was not 100 miles. It was just barely over a normal marathon, if I recall, maybe like 27 miles or something. And he did quite a bit of running, but he also did quite a bit of just like regular hiking and backpacking to get ready. And I think he wishes that he had done more just like straight up trail running to prepare for that. So I wasn't sure what direction you were going to take that. If you were going to say like, oh, I wish I had done more running, but it sounds like it actually kind of helped there. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, dude, like thru hiking is such a great training mechanism for ultras, because when I did the JMT in 2020, I actually came back and got broken up with, right? So I was like on this like, tear of just like physicality stuff. And I was doing jujitsu at the time as well. And I actually ended up tearing my bicep like 2 months after the JMT, like in October. And so I was like, well, I can't do that anymore right now. So I actually ended up just signing up for my first 50K ultra like a month later. Because I was like, gosh, I feel still really strong from the JMT, just like the zone 1 heart rate, slow twitch muscle fibers and all that. And yeah, I completed that really with no problem. And so that was kind of like my first foray into it. But like thru hiking is so good for ultras. And matter of fact, like that, what's his name? Mac from Halfway Anywhere. He's got like that blog. I see he actually flew to Oregon and did the Cascade Lakes 100, which was about a month after mine. And that was his first ultra as well. And so I think it really does go to show you that when you do these thru hikes and things, like you're training perfectly for like something like 100-mile ultra.
Interesting. That's kind of encouraging to hear, to be honest, because I mean, obviously I've done a lot of thru hiking, but I've never done an ultra. Like, I really haven't even trail ran more than maybe like 10 or 15 miles max. But it's not something I'm actively planning for, but it is something that I would like to do. I would like to do an ultra for sure. And I've always wondered about that. Like, how much how much does a lot of experience like thru hiking kind of prepare you for something like that? So that's interesting, honestly. That's interesting. But it does sound like you were like training as far as like running, as well, obviously.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I think a big thing too is heart rate monitor, stuff like that. I really got into at that point as well. One book that I would definitely recommend is The Uphill Athlete. Oh my gosh, they have really good training logs and things like that. But yeah, I mean, like the biggest thing between like obviously like a thru hike and a 100-mile ultra is like, or like there's so many similarities. Like, how to fuel yourself on a thru hike, right? That's like a very important part. And so that's a very important part in an ultra as well. But like, it's a little bit different because you kind of need a little bit more sugar and stuff. Like, whereas like you could, at least for me, I can eat like a lot of fats and just regular carbs, like on a thru hike. Whereas like on the back end of my ultra, I was just, the only thing I could keep down, because your stomach gets just so upset because all of your blood's rushing to your extremities to run. As opposed to like a thru hike, you're going still slow enough where you can still eat, And I was just, all I was eating for the last like back 50 was Coca-Cola.
Wow.
That's all I could. That's all I could get was like, and that was my calories and my sugars, but like that's all I could keep down. So it was really interesting. But yeah, I mean, I think it's great. I would love to see you do like start with like a 50K. I think you'd crush it.
Yeah. Oh, I would not be jumping into 100. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
I don't even know if I would ever. I don't know. I guess I should start with something smaller. I would like to though at some point. I just feel like I get this thing where it doesn't really happen to me when I'm thru hiking for some reason, but just in regular life, like I'm primarily like getting out in like the 3 seasons. I don't really do too much in the winter. I ski, but I don't like I don't hike and run and stuff. But I always find that like spring will come around. I'll try to start slow and like ramp up my mileage, both like hiking, and I've been doing some trail running too, although nothing crazy. And I'll ramp up my mileage, and then after like a month, this has happened like every freaking summer for like the past couple summers. Like after like a month, I'll just get like some little injury, like nothing like major. I'm not breaking my freaking leg or anything like that, but it'll just be some nagging injury that'll make me be like, okay, I need to like, pump the brakes a little bit here. And then by the time I feel like it's fully healed and I'm like 100% again, like I've lost all that progress. And so I feel like it'd be tough for me to, this isn't even a question for you, but like, I just feel like it'd be tough for me to do the training necessary in order to run an ultra like that. But then again, I've gone out and I've hiked plenty of 20, 30 mile days even. And so here's a question. Right. How, in your experience, because I'm sure you've done the same, what's the difference between hiking, say in the context of a thru hike, you have your gear and stuff. What's the difference between hiking, say a 25 mile day, a 30 mile day, and doing it when you're, competing, running, whatever, ultra stuff?
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's a good question. Well, definitely the time, right? Because it takes a long time when you're hiking that compared to running. I think for like in pain wise, your feet hurt a lot worse on a long hiking day compared to like your entire like lower body on a long run like that. So particularly like your knees and stuff. And like, it's actually like hard to go to sleep as well after that because you're just kind of really, really sore. Whereas like, you're pretty zonked out after a long hike like that for the most part. And you can usually go to sleep, and then you can, by the next day, it's like you've had all that time off your feet and you're ready to go hike again. Yeah. Right. It's like, right. And so, whereas running, it's like, okay, that takes like a few days to recover for sure. So yeah, that's like the biggest thing. But like, obviously, but being in competition, and same with hiking too, is like, for me is like, if I can find, like, one thing that I do in my ultras is like, I latch on to someone to have a conversation with so I can pass the miles like super quickly. And I do the same thing like with through hiking too sometimes, although typically I like to go solo because I don't really like to be married to somebody on the trail per se. You know what I'm saying? Like, because then if they get off, I have to get off, and this whole thing.
Oh yeah.
And so I'd rather just meet somebody on there and then just talk with them or whatever. And so it's like, it's the same thing with like the ultra scene as well. And that just really clicks the miles by compared to being solo. Yeah,
that's interesting. You're giving me a lot of stuff to think about for sure. I don't think I'll do any races this year, but maybe next year. We'll see.
Yeah, man.
I got
you got it.
Yeah, I want to. Like, trust me. I got to figure out a way to train properly. And like, I hear you talking about like heart rate and like nutrition, and like I haven't done any fucking research into that stuff. So I got a lot to learn for sure. But I don't know. I do know people that are like very strong hikers and, have done some trail running, maybe like 10 to 15-ish mile kind of trail runs and some longer days, but more maybe hiking, that have gone and done ultras, not 100 milers, but 30 miles or whatever, and made it out all right. So I feel like I got it in me. I feel like I want to, but it's just.
Well, if you think about it like this, man, it's like a 50K, right? That's like you're starting pretty much ultra, where it's like 31 miles. It's like, just think of it as it's a long hiking day. That's all it is. And then you don't even have a pack on.
I know,
so,
that's
you can walk it.
Yeah.
So you could definitely sure as heck run it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you could, and here's a really cool thing about ultras. You're definitely not running the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
I was gonna say, because dude, I can't run uphill. Like, I can hike uphill fast and aggressively, but I cannot run uphill. So that's my understanding. Is like, I mean, I think it's my understanding. Anyways, you can correct me if I'm wrong. On a lot of these races, there's no way that like most of these people are straight up running on the uphills, right?
Right. Yeah. Unless you're like elite, right? Like you're going to be doing that. But most of the time, what a lot of people are doing is what's called just power hiking. So they basically like imagine them have their hands on their knees and they're just like kind of pumping them forward as they're accelerating uphill.
Okay.
And that's again where a thru hiker has a lot of advantage, because we're so like used to like having a pack on our back going uphill at that same exact speed, except now you don't have a pack on. Mm-hmm. You're 30 pounds less, 35 pounds less,
which is definitely nice. That's what I do pretty much when I try to trail run uphill. I do the power hiking thing. Mm-hmm. And I do the hands on the legs, that whole Perfect. Thing. So yeah, I think I got it in me. But anyways, dude, so let's step back a little bit. So you're doing all this stuff, you're doing freaking Rainier, you're doing ultras, through hikes. Where did all this start? Like, one of the questions I was going to ask is whether trail running or through hiking came first, but it kind of sounds like through hiking did, yeah?
Exactly.
Cloud Splitter Coffee. That's the sponsor of this episode, and I'm so excited to tell you guys all about them. Cloud Splitter is owned by Billy Rudd, a veteran who is also a Northeastern peak bagger, Appalachian Trail section hiker, and an ultramarathoner. I've had the chance to speak with Billy quite a bit over the past few weeks. He's awesome, and so is Cloud Splitter's coffee. It's so freaking good, dude. In fact, I'm really hoping you all respond well to this sponsorship, so Cloud Splitter will want to do more sponsorships so I can get more coffee sent to me. Their Ridgeline roast, which is like a medium roast, is so amazing. As soon as I opened up the bag, I smelled it, and I just knew it was going to be sick. And when I tasted it, it all lived up to the hype, let me tell you. They actually don't roast their coffee until you order it, so you know it's going to be as fresh as any coffee that you've ever tried. Oh, and also I gave some to my father, who is like a huge coffee snob, much more of a coffee snob than I am, and he loved it. So when I saw that, I was like, okay, this coffee is so legit. And what's also really legit about it is actually the design of the bag, which I know that might not mean much for you guys without being able to see it, but just trust me, when you see the bag, you can tell that this is a company that is just all about hikers. You got to see it for yourself. Cloud Splitter coffee is ethically sourced and expertly roasted, keeping you caffeinated, satisfied, and of course, outside. A portion of every sale goes to outdoor causes, so you can make your mark while you leave no trace. And Trail Tales listeners are going to get a special 10% discount when they enter the coupon code TRAIL10. That is the word trail and the number 10 at checkout on cloudsplittercoffee.com. One more time, use the code TRAIL10 at cloudsplittercoffee.com. I'll have a link to that in the show notes as well. Guys, go show some support to this awesome brand. It's amazing coffee. Cloud Splitter Coffee, for the love of the grind. I asked pretty much everybody this question. Like, how did you first learn about thru? Not even like when you decided to thru hike, but how did it first like come across your radar?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thanks for asking that, because it makes me reminisce. And honestly, we were talking a little bit before this because I was kind of throwing around like wanting to do the PCT, and I kind of have the same feeling that I have now about the PCT that I did when I first kind of discovered thru hiking in about 2019. And what I actually did was I read, it was called Thru Hiking Will Break Your Heart by Carrot Quinn.
Yeah, I haven't read it, but I'm familiar with it, yeah.
It's pretty good. So I read that, and then I was actually following IB Tat, his
fucking
PCT
Tat,
hike.
Dude. I love that guy.
Yeah. Dude, I actually met him on the CT. He was coming Sobo on the CDT. I was leaving Breckenridge, and we crossed paths, talked to him for like a half hour. He was a really cool guy. But, well, full circle thing, you know?
Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, I like in 2019, I was like, okay, you know what? Actually, my first thought was like, I'm going to run a marathon, because I had ran like a half marathon a few years before or something, right? And so I started training for this marathon, and then I was like, I started reading those things and watching those videos. I was like, no, I'm going to do a 100-mile hike on a section of the PCT. Okay. That's what I want to do, because I was in Oregon, and I kind of live there by near Bend, I guess, on the PCT. That would be like the closest part there to me. And so I was like, I'm going to do a section there. So I did a section, absolutely loved it. Did another 160 or something a couple weeks later. And then that's what made me catch the bug. And then the next year was the JMT, then the CT. And then that's kind of how everything kind of fed into one another. And yeah, but like, to be honest with you, man, like, and I don't know why that was, but like after the CT, I just got kind of burnt out. And I was like, oh man, like I think it's because though, like I had a job at that time, like a 9 to 5, and like the CT was such a blur. Like I did it in like 22 days. So
yeah,
like,
dude, I know that struggle. Like I'm sure a lot of people listening do as well. It's like you want to do it, but like you got to fit it in with the schedule and everything. And yeah, it definitely, it's still worth it. I'm sure you would agree, but it definitely kind of, I don't know. It's not as good as just being free, you know?
Yeah. You don't feel free. Yeah. I mean, like you feel free, but like but in the back of your mind, like subconsciously, you're like, yeah, I got to get this done so I don't get fired.
Yep.
Yeah, that's where I was. But now that I am basically, my own boss. And so I'm like, man, why don't I just do the PCT and I can make content there and, take some 0 days and upload some stuff, and I think we'll be good.
Yeah, man. A little bit, I want to go back to something you said just a minute ago about meeting IBTAT, because I had a kind of a similar thing too. It's been told on the show before, but it's been a long time. I met IBTAT on my AT thru hike before I even had the podcast, before the YouTube and everything. And I hadn't even watched his videos, but I had just seen him on Instagram, and I like knew who he was and stuff. And I met him, and I was like picking his brain a little bit about content. And because I had the idea to start the podcast like right after I got home from the AT. And so I was telling him, I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to start this podcast or whatever. And so I was kind of picking his brain, and he was like, yeah, whatever, dude. Like, and then I did. And then he's been on the show. It's been a while now, but he's been on the show a couple times. And so also a little bit full circle kind of moment, but it's pretty funny. He's
really
the man.
Cool dude.
He's the man. I got to get him back
dude.
on. I haven't talked to him for a while now, but man, he's cool. So, anyways, so JMT was first. Yeah. I think you said.
Yeah. That was a Nobo northbound of the JMT. So it was like, I always like to tell people it was 30 miles more than the regular JMT, the southbound JMT.
Okay.
So yeah.
Can you talk about that a little bit more? Because I don't really know this distinction. I don't know a ton about the JMT, honestly, besides I've heard it's really hard to get a permit and shit. And I guess I did a good chunk of it last summer, but why is Nobo longer?
Yeah, so Nobo is easier to get permits, but it's longer. Because southbound out of Yosemite and then you end in Mount Whitney is like the traditional route. But going northbound, you actually have to enter in at what a place is called Horseshoe Meadows. And then you climb up to the PCT at, I forget what pass it is up there. And then you go north and then you summit Whitney and then you go to Forester and all of Glen and all of that type of stuff. Mm-hmm. So you're actually starting at like the super high elevation stuff first, whereas southbounders work up to the elevation. And oh my gosh, man, I was so walloped like the first 3 days. Oh my gosh.
That sounds pretty brutal.
Oh, I was like, it was just punched in the face from the altitude. Like, I mean, I climbed Whitney on my second day and came down and I didn't leave my tent from like 4:30 p.m. to like the next morning, you know?
I was going to say like jumping right into Whitney like that must have been pretty tough.
Well, and then the worst part of this whole thing is the especially northbound, is the resupply options were terrible. So, dude, I was carrying, you're not going to believe this, I was carrying 8.5 days of food and a bear can.
Fuck.
Okay?
Damn.
8.5 days of food, dude. My pack was so heavy.
That sounds awful. I was actually going to ask you about that because just from going through there on the PCT, in prime thru hiker shape at that point, mind you, like even then, like the resupply was tough. I mean, actually, come to think of it, it wasn't 8 days, but I did my longest food carry ever going through there, and plus the bear can. So, dude, 8 days of food? Oh, man. It was
so brutal, dude. Yeah. So, because, you know, you could get off at Kearsarge Pass, but that was like an extra, basically, day to get out
that's
there
what we did. Yeah, it was a pain. It was a pain in the ass.
Exactly. So I just went from Horseshoe to VVR, actually. And oh, it was a long time. Actually, I ended up running out of, like, very near running out of food at the end. And actually, a couple Soboers actually, like, were giving me some food, like, towards the end there. Because I was just like, it's hard to plan out 8.5 days of food.
Yeah.
I mean, my first 2 days, I wasn't eating anything, though, because of the altitude. Like, I couldn't eat dinner or any of that. But then, like, the hiker hunger started coming. And then I was just like eating everything, of course, and so then that kind of became a problem, and so yeah. But the JMT was great. That's almost another reason why I want to do the PCT is because I want to go through that again.
Yeah.
Because it was great. It was great.
Yeah, and then after VVR, I'm trying to remember here. I could be wrong. Would Muir Ranch or whatever it's called, was that your next resupply?
No, so I only resupply. So MTR was actually before VVR by about a day for me.
Oh,
and
okay.
I only resupplied one time on the
Damn,
JMT.
dude, that's insane.
I went VVR to all the way to the end. Yeah, I mean, got a big ass burrito at Red's Meadow for like $20. I'm like, okay, I'll grab another one though. And so I grabbed a couple of those, but yeah, other than that, it was, I mean, that's the other thing about the Sierra, like, as you know, dude, it's so isolated. I mean, I would always think too, like, I would get phone service at the top of those passes or something.
Oh, never. No shot. Dude.
Never.
That was like the least amount of service I had on my entire PCT excursion. Like, straight up, I lost so many snap streaks. You have no idea. No, just kidding. I did lose one, but it's okay. But like, dude, like Kearsarge Pass, like, I was like planning out the resupply like a little bit before I got there when I was like at the end of the desert, and like, you know, AT style, the AT is so easy to resupply on. Pretty much the only time where it's a kind of tricky is when you're in the 100-mile wilderness, which is right at the end of the trail if you're going Nobo, like most people do. But like everything else is super, super easy. 3 to 4 days, straight shot into town, easy to hitch, no problems at all. And most of the PCT is like that too, but maybe longer food carries. But I'm looking at this first section of the Sierras, and I'm like, dude, there's nowhere. I was like reading articles on it and shit, and it's like, yeah, so you're gonna want to take the Kearsarge Pass Trail out 7 miles, and then you'll get 7 miles off the PCT, and then you'll get to a trailhead It's not like you're at a road at that point where it's like a straight shot, and then you go to a trailhead, and then you have to get a ride from the trailhead, and you have to get down into Independence, but there's nothing there. You can't resupply there either. So then when you're in Independence, you got to hitch either north or south to Lone Pine or Bishop or whatever. I was like, dude, this is insane. And so that's what we ended up doing. But man, like, I feel you. I didn't quite have to carry 8 days worth of food, but like, I feel you on how tricky it is to resupply through there. It's a trip for sure, but it's beautiful. Dude, it's worth it.
Yeah, you laid that out so perfectly, and that's exactly why I didn't want to resupply there. But yeah, I mean, what month did you end up going through there on the PCT, by the way?
I think it was, oh God, I think it was late June, I think, something like that. No snow issues or weather issues or anything.
Nice.
Which I know that depends year to year a little bit, but yeah, I think it was like late June, maybe. Yeah, it must have been late June, because then when I got to Mammoth, we were there on the 4th of July, so I remember that for sure. So yeah, it was late June, I guess, into early July. So it was nuts, dude. I want to go back there so bad, but like, damn.
Yeah, I wonder. I'm really wondering what it's going to look like for the Northbounders this year. With so much snow.
I know. I don't even like. I've had a couple people reach out to me and ask, like PCT hikers, and ask since I did it last year, like for advice about this. And I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I'm an East Coaster, so I don't. Yeah, of course I hiked through there, but that was the only time I've ever been there, so I don't even really know what to say. But yeah, it's gonna be dicey for sure. I just hope everybody's making smart decisions and being safe about it, because it's like that can be pretty crazy.
Yeah, because I mean, it's just so far from anything, dude.
I know. And like, there is a lot of foot traffic, obviously, at least on the PCT JMT, but like, yeah. And I hope everyone's carrying a freaking, like a Garmin or a Spot or something with an SOS button just in case through there. Cause like I said, and like Chad said, you're not going to have any service. No shot. I still remember the first time I got service in the Sierra. It was towards the end. I think it was like the day before we got to Mammoth. And like, I'd read a comment on Far Out being like, oh, there's like service at the Spot. And I was like so pumped. And of course, I'm sure you've experienced this too. Like, you finally get service and your phone just starts blowing up. I got DMs, Snapchats, freaking everybody from the past, like, however many days. And
my phone was actually the opposite. I really didn't have that much. I was a little bit depressed. I was like,
oh no,
wow, I guess nobody really cares.
You're texting, you're like, hey mom, I'm still alive.
Yeah.
I'm still here. Don't worry about me. That's funny.
Yeah.
Well, damn, dude. So the Colorado Trail, did you say the next year after that, after the JMT?
Yeah, Colorado Trail was the next year. I was really thinking about the long trail, but I was like, no, I'm gonna do the CT, because I really wanted to do the CT, and my work was still kind of under like the COVID protocol, basically thing where we were working in office, or not working outside of office rather. Mm-hmm. And so we were like working remotely, our caseloads were down and things. And so I basically was like to the boss, I was like, hey, look, like I feel like this is my last chance to do this, working, and we're really low right now. I feel like whatever. And so she was cool, let me go. And yeah, just started rolling through Colorado and getting dumped on by the monsoon season. I really came to understand what monsoon season is, which is quite incredible. I mean, I didn't take it as serious as I thought it was going to be. And yeah, man, it was wicked. It was a wicked time.
What time of year? I see. I've only hiked in Colorado once, and it was in the fall, so I didn't really have to worry about that. It's like summer, I'm assuming, just like prime, like monsoon.
Yeah, apparently. I mean, it was June 30th I started. Okay. So basically through July. But talking to locals, they were like, yeah, like this pattern has been weird. The storms have been lasting for like several hours, where usually it's like, 30 minutes or something like that. And so, yeah, I mean, towards the end of the CT, I had been getting rained on and stormed on quite often, like every other day type of thing. Or, you were hearing thunder and all this stuff. Or sometimes even at night. One time when I was in the high country at night, it was just like lightning and thunderstorming, and I'm just out in the open by myself. I'm like, oh my God.
Dude, that scares the shit. People that listen to the show on the regular know, like, lightning is like probably my biggest fear when it comes to backpacking. Oh man.
100%. So get this, the second to last day, I'm on the CT and I get up to this ridge. And as I'm getting up to this ridge, I literally record an Instagram story and I'm like, oh yeah, it looks like the storm is moving back over this way. I think I'll be good, you know, and I put my phone away, and as I'm at the top of this like little saddle about to descend to the trees, it's, you know, it's completely open up there. I meet some bikers, mountain bikers, because it's a big, the Colorado Trail is also like a mountain bike area as well.
Yeah.
Really cool. And so, dude, so these bikers look at the clouds and they're like, they like talk to each other. They're like, all right, well, let's get out of here. You know,
yeah, let's get the fuck out of here.
Yeah. So of course, you know, they're in front of me and they just bomb it down there.
Right.
You know, they're freaking halfway to Whoville at this point, and I'm like still basically on the ridge, and I'm just like, I think it's gonna be fine. But then all of a sudden, just like boom, like a thunder comes, and then just like the wind picks up, and I'm like, oh dude, this isn't good. And so I grab my raincoat out, and the wind's picking up, and all of a sudden it starts hailing, sleeting, and I have this on video on my YouTube, and I'm just running for the trees because I'm so high still, and I'm just running for the trees.
Like running off trail?
No, running down the trail, but I'm trying to get to the trees because I was in the high country still.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like getting down. It was like half mile to these trees, and I'm running as fast as I can, and just hail, lightning, everything's crashing around me. So I get under this tree, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna like wait out the storm here, right? And this tree's gonna provide protection. Well, it was raining so hard that the tree just soaks through basically, and it's just like everything's dripping on me. So I pull out my Tyvek sheet, and I basically like wrap that as like my shelter around me, and I just get even more soaked. And it's cold, and it's thundering, and it's lightning, and it's just like, dude, it's like right over me. And this continues for an hour, and I'm like, I don't know what to do at this point. And so now I can't even, like, I had a long sleeve shirt on too, one of those Columbia Silver Ridges, and I had it buttoned up as a short sleeve, and my hands, I was so cold that like I couldn't undo that button.
Oh man.
It was like one of those things that I'm like, okay, dude, like I need to like just start walking or hiking because I'm gonna go hypothermic.
Yeah.
So I just like start walking, and it's still like raining. I'm just like, I don't know, I don't care. And you know, eventually like the storm moves away, and again, it was like 2 hours before like again I had any control over my hands. I just like I couldn't do anything. I was just like, if anybody thinks that they're going to start a fire when they're like hypothermic, like try to flick a lighter, like it's not going to happen. It's just not, you just can't do it. Mm-hmm. There's no dexterity there. And so, yeah, that was really interesting. Like my second to last day that happened.
Oh man, you're so close to the end too. You're probably kind of over it, just ready to be warm and dry and fed.
Yep, totally, dude. And so that was a heck of a thing, which, yeah, and then we were kind of talking on Instagram before, which kind of led into the Wind River High Route, which was the next year, which was last year. Which have you heard of high routes before?
Yeah, they've been talked about a little bit on the show. I've never done one. I honestly don't know too much about them. I have heard of I don't know if I've heard of the Wind River High Route specifically. There's probably somebody listening to the show that's been like, dude, there's an episode like 10 episodes ago where someone told you exactly about it. I've heard of the Wind River range. I know the CDT goes through there and stuff, but I don't know if I've heard of that exact route specifically.
Yeah. So essentially, like a high route is off-trail travel, essentially, right? Where you're just basically picking your way through ridges on a kind of route, essentially. And so this was during monsoon season in Wyoming. Now, me and my buddy went the next day or the next year, and we did Andrew Skirka's version of the Wind River High Route, which, dude, is gnarly. You know him. I mean, he's gnarly.
Oh yeah,
right?
Yeah.
So this thing was just so gnarly. And we ended up just getting crushed by thunder, lightning again. And we ended up bailing on that like halfway through because it was just like, dude, it was only the crazy thing is just like it was 98 miles, right? But it was going to take us we packed enough food for like 6.5 days, but like we're not going to make this in 6.5 days because it was taking us all morning to go 2.5 miles just trying to pick your way through these boulder fields and stuff. So anyway, that's on my list to tackle again, but man, was that tough. That's a trip. Those high roads are a trip.
And that shit's got to be super remote out there too. I mean, it's an off-trail route, so obviously I'm sure you're not seeing anybody, but like exactly. I know like there can't be like that many people hiking in the winds either. It's not quite as well traveled as Colorado. Am I right? Am I wrong?
No, you're totally right. I mean, you do like at the first part of it, you go through the cirque of the towers where there's some climbers and stuff. And then we did see some CDTers, but like our first 2 days were we saw the most people, which is only like a handful of people. And then the next subsequent days would have been where you're going over, like you're crossing glaciers and this and that, like in the middle of nowhere near Gannett Peak, which is like Wyoming's high point and stuff. And I was just like, dude, I am not feeling this. Like, we are going to just get crushed by this. Like, and we're going to run out of food. So that was like a whole adventure on itself to try to get to our car because it was an out and back. Or no, it was not an out, or a point to point rather. And so our buddy, so I came with a buddy that came with me from Seattle. We flew there, went to Salt Lake, got a rental car, whatever. But my other buddy came from Ohio.
No.
But then what happened? So we had to leave one car at the end, and then we had to drive all the way back to the starting trailhead. Well, he ended up getting COVID right before the hike, so he couldn't go. So it's just me and my other buddy, which was a buzzkill. And so then he drives all the way back to Ohio. So we obviously can't. We had to somehow get to our rental car at the end of the hike. So we're hitching all over Wyoming for like a couple days to get back to Du Bois. And yeah, so that was a great story too there. But yeah, Wind River High Route, man, I got a bone to pick with it, but it's tough. It's really tough.
Yeah, you'll go back. I mean, especially if you're living in Wyoming now. Shit, I mean, it's got to be on your radar, like you said.
Yeah, I think so. Like there's Skirka's version, and then there's Allen's version of it, which Allen's kind of goes southbound, I believe, and it's 80 miles, and it's a little bit less rugged. That's the one I'm going to start with because high routes are just a different beast in and of itself. Like they're just a lot of scrambling, very slow. It's just like, it's not like hiking on a trail. But that's why I like it, but also kind of why it's intimidating.
Yeah, it sounds super intimidating, especially for someone like myself who hasn't really hiked out west that much. So yeah, I don't know. I think I don't know if I would. I don't think I would tackle like an entire high route my first time. I think I would probably I don't even know if this would be possible. Probably somewhere. I would probably want to go for like, maybe 2 nights in that kind of terrain just to get used to it a little bit. Cause I haven't really done much off trail stuff, to be honest.
100%. I got one for you. It's called the Alpine Lakes High Route. And that is in the North Cascades in Washington, which I'm sure did you end up going through some of the North Cascades in Washington? I'm
not exactly sure where they start and end. I got off at Stevens Pass, Leavenworth area.
So you would have been through a lot of that stuff there. So yeah, it's around that area actually, the Alpine Lakes High Route, and that's like 24 miles or something like that. That's a really good place to start with one of them.
Yeah, that might be a good starting one. I got to finish the freaking PCT before I worry about that. I got to run an ultramarathon. I got to do a high route. Dude, what else? 100 miles. I don't think I'm going to do a 100-mile run. Dude, how the fuck do you run 100 miles? Like I saw your clip on Instagram of you at the very end of that, and like I thought you were about to die, bro. I'm not going to lie. Like I literally thought you were about to double over and freaking die. Like that's insane. 100. How do you run 100 miles, dude?
Yeah, man, it's crazy. I think like the first thing is like I don't know. It's just like the PCT though. It's like, I mean, I look at that right now. No, it's not. Dude, I think like the PCT is like to me, like a long through hike like that is, man, it's like, how would I call it? It's just like every day, like you probably have thoughts to stop, and it's kind of like a war of attrition, right? Where it's like every day you have like these little things that like could make you stop and blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. And like the PCT to me is like on a scale that's larger than a 100 because the 100 is encapsulated. I mean, it took me, 30 hours or 32? I can't remember how long it was, but like, yeah, that's a long freaking day.
Yeah.
But like, I can put up with that pain for a day for 32 hours or whatever. But like on a through hike, man, that's like every day for 3-4 months. And so like, to me, I'm like, gosh, like that's very respectable right there. But Yeah, man, like, I don't know. The 100 is I think it's just working up to it with running smaller ultras first.
Yeah.
And then, but my largest one before that was a 50 miler. And it was kind of crazy to think like, oh my God, I would have to go 50 more miles, which is absolutely insane.
Yeah.
Right? But I think like the biggest thing for me was actually my parents flew out for this. They're in Wisconsin. That's where I'm originally from. And they came out and they were doing the crewing for me. Them and my girlfriend, and then I had some buddies come out, and that like made a huge difference because, you know, like when you're on a thru hike and you have like a really good day or like you're crushing it or even you finish and your family's never there, right? Like it's just like you and like your buddies or like your friends or whatever. So like this was really freaking cool because like every aid station I would get to, they were all there, and that was like really kind of keeping me in the game. It was really special. And so, yeah. And then like one other kind of tool I like to use too, that's a little more specific is like, I didn't listen to headphones, or I didn't use my headphones to like mile, I think 80 or so. And I was just kind of like using it as this tool to and like this carrot that I had to like get to and kind of like reward myself. And cause like, if I was like, shit, if I started listening to music right away, like there would be nothing to look forward to.
Yeah.
So you need to, and just like those small wins on a thru hike, you have to kind of like get to like those small wins. And so like just breaking it down aid station to aid station and just like the PCT, not thinking about the end. It's just like the next thing, right?
That makes a lot of sense. Your last point there especially really resonated with me because that is like the way that I've always tackled the longer hikes is like you can't think too much about the end because so interesting. Aid station to aid station. All right.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny the way you kind of talk about a thru hike in saying that seems like how do I phrase this? You almost made it sound like that's like a pretty like difficult thing that you would like to achieve someday. And it's kind of the opposite for me with the running. Like I'm not phrasing this well, but like I've done a couple long thru hikes. And so like that seems like it's not easy, but like that seems attainable to me. But then when I think about running 100 miles in one shot, that seems like impossible, or maybe not impossible, but just like super difficult. And it's almost like the opposite for you, where it's like you've done the 100 miles, but you haven't done like the long thru hike yet. And so like that seems like super difficult. So that's kind of an interesting dynamic there. I don't know.
That is hilarious. Yeah, and it's just simply probably because we just each haven't done it yet. So
yeah, exactly. Like, it's just all about what experiences you've had. You know, it's kind of interesting.
But yeah, man, I like I said, dude, I totally respect like what you've done with the AT and PCT. Like that's some badass stuff right there.
I appreciate that. You can do it. Like straight up, I thru hiked the long trail. That was like my first like proper thru hike. And I still like to this day believe that if you can do like a 200, 300 mile trail like that, you can do one of the long. I mean, shit, there's plenty of people that have never even backpacked before, let alone done, a 200 mile trail that go on and thru hike the AT or the PCT or whatever successfully. But especially if you've done like a couple shorter thru hikes like that. And I know the Colorado trail's even a little bit longer. Like, dude, you're in good shape. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
What would you say is the biggest, like, difference, obviously, between like a smaller thru hike compared to the bigger one? Besides, obviously, like the mileage.
It's all predictably, it's all like the mental. It's just like the fact that you're out there for so long. And the end is just never in sight until the very end, obviously, of the hike. And so like that's probably the first thing that comes to mind. And then also just like you have to sustain yourself for much longer. And so you obviously have to be careful as far as like your health and your body, injuries and stuff when you're on shorter thru hikes too, but especially on a long thru hike like that. There's some kind of things where say you're at the end of like a 300 mile thru hike and your body's really beat up, but like you're so close, you can kind of like just drag yourself through the end. If you're on a longer thru hike, then obviously being 300 miles in and like barely getting by isn't going to cut it. Like it's not sustainable. And so you have to be mindful of that as well. But I think the biggest thing is just the mental, and kind of going back to what we just talked about a few minutes ago. It's like, this is why you're going to be able to do this, because like you already have this mindset when it comes to the ultras and stuff. It's like, and you do experience this on shorter through hikes too, but it's just kind of on a whole nother level on the long ones. But yeah, you can't be thinking about the end. You cannot be thinking about the end. You really got to just take it instead of aid station to aid station. Like you said, it's almost just town to town. On the AT, you can kind of do state to state a little bit. Not so much on the PCT, because you'd be, if you're thinking about getting to the end of California when you're, in Tehachapi still, you're going to be kind of screwed. But I think that's probably those are the two things that come to mind anyways. But, dude, let's talk about content a little bit. This is what everyone wants to hear about. No, that's not true. But I am kind of curious whenever I get like folks like yourself that do this for a living now. I don't know. It's fun to talk about. This is something that I don't think this specific question has ever been talked about. So you're a full-time content creator now, yeah?
Yes. As of January 19th.
Cool, man. So like, I'm doing that as well. And one thing that I've found that I'm kind of struggling with is when you're calling the shots, like purely for yourself, you set your own schedule, like everything is you. I'm finding it kind of tricky because whenever I'm not working, I feel a little bit guilty. Because like it's basically you get out of it what you put into it. It's not like a regular job where you show up and you do your hours and then the weekend comes or your time off comes and you can kind of put it out of your mind. Like this, it's like, it's quite literally, yeah, exactly what I said. Like you get out exactly what you put into it. So I don't know. Do you ever feel like guilty when you're not working?
Bro, it's bad.
Isn't it?
It's so bad. Like even like, this morning I actually went out and filmed some stuff for some brands and like my own stuff. And really you could consider that whole thing like work, right? And I was kind of like doing some scrambling around on some rocks, but like I get up to the top of this like kind of peak thing and I was just like looking around. I was like, gosh, this is awesome. And then I was like, well, now I got to go home and edit it all. So I better roll now.
Yeah.
So it's like one of those things, man. And dude, I mean, I've talked to my girlfriend about this quite often. It's
Same.
Like, yeah, right, man. It's like, I don't know how to shut it off, really. First of all, congratulations on leaving your job, because that's a huge step, right?
I appreciate that.
Or felt super risky at the time, right?
Yeah.
But I don't have an answer for you, because it's like I literally I don't really have any other hobbies besides doing content creation and then just outdoor stuff. Like like I said, I used to do jujitsu a lot, and now I'm like, I kind of view things through the lens of, is this going to help my business or not? Mm-hmm. And if it's a no, I usually cut it out. Like as just kind of ruthless as that is, like anything though, like anything that I view as not conducive to the business or what I'm doing in the outdoors, like I just cut it off. And I don't know if that's healthy or not, but like, here's the thing, man. The reality is like, to get where, you have gotten to on YouTube, you have to be quite obsessed with some of this stuff, right?
For a long time too, for most people.
And it's like, yes, that personality might, I guess, maybe lead to burnout at some point, but I've gotten close, but yeah, I really don't know. I'm really talking in circles here. I don't really have an answer for you. I would love to know, like, are you doing anything for that, or like how
Dude,
do you
I don't know, man. Also, I just want to acknowledge too the irony of us complaining about our fucking dope jobs like on this podcast. Just to be clear, like obviously, like this is sweet, and we're very lucky. But dude, I don't know. Like I haven't really figured it out yet, to be honest. And the thing is with me too. It's not that I'm just always working either. It's not like, oh, you get out what you put in, and so you're just always working. It's not even that. Like I still have days where, just like at my day job before, where I would feel just unmotivated and probably wouldn't do that much, and it's like, I still get that now all the time. It comes in waves and stuff, but I still have those days and where I won't be that productive, and it just eats at you. It just eats at you. And so I haven't really figured it out. I will say, when I'm doing stuff with friends, then I can usually turn it off. Like if I'm out with other people and I'm not thinking about it, and that I've definitely been able to like get over the hurdle there with that, like, because I'm like, oh, I'm spending time with this person, like creating memories, doing whatever. In those circumstances, I don't really ever think about it or feel guilty about not working. But when I'm just doing stuff by myself, like, yeah, it's there. It's hard.
I love that though. That's such a great point with like the friends type of thing to like kind of get you out of that. I love that. You know, sometimes what I'll do too, like this winter, is like I would on like a weekend or something, if it was a nice weekend, like one of the days I would set as like filming stuff or content or whatever, and then like the next day I would like just stay overnight in my rig, and then like the next day I would just like go ski tour with my buddies and like not really do anything for content. So I'd be like, okay, well I already got one day of filming in, that's good enough for me, and like I kind of need like a reset. But I was also watching one of these a course, and the guy was it was really interesting. The guy was talking about, he's like, there's kind of two different types of entrepreneurs or self-employed people, and it's kind of like and it's like on a spectrum. But on one side you have like someone that wants a lot of accomplishment, right? Like they're an accomplishment entrepreneur, and the other side is a lifestyle entrepreneur. And if I think about like why I got into like self-employment in the first place, it was to create more freedom and time for myself to actually do the things I like to do. And so now like I'm trying to like stay in that lifestyle mindset of being like, okay, the whole reason I did this was so I didn't have to work or I could do the things that I wanted to do, feel good about them, and have the time to do them.
Yeah. And
so like I'm starting to like kind of cut back some things and like create like boundaries of like, okay, I'm done working at this time and stuff like that. And then like another thing that course talked about was they're like, after about 4 or 5 hours of work in a day, your productivity just takes like a huge hit.
Oh yeah, man. I feel that definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it's like, okay, well, knowing that like any amount of effort I put in after like this 4 or 5 hours is like kind of not as effective. So knowing that now has helped me a little bit, like kind of turn things off a little bit. But yeah, man. I mean, but like you said, it's a great, I love the job. I would never.
Oh yeah.
Want to go back to like what I was doing before.
It scares me.
Better.
The thought of that scares me. Which, let's be honest, it's very likely that will happen at some point. But like, yeah, it's I don't want to.
Nah. You know what was funny, man, is I made a video about quitting, and somebody, I'll never forget this YouTube comment, but they were like, there's going to be a lot of days where you feel like you want to go back to the security of what you were doing before. And they were like, but never do it. And I was like, oh, I love that, man. So nice. But you're right, man. Like, do you feel like, for me, I feel like this is true for me, but like, do you feel like some of that is that fear of going back to that place is kind of what drives you a little bit too?
Oh, dude, at the beginning, absolutely. Absolutely. Like we kind of talked about this a little bit before we started recording, but when I got back from the PCT, I mean, technically I was a full-time YouTuber, I guess, you know, in the spring of last year when I quit to go hike the PCT, but it didn't really feel like it until I got home from the PCT because I was hiking, and that kind of felt like my primary focus, even though I was making content still. So yeah, when I got home, I was like, well, here we go. I'm not bringing in really any money, and like, if I'm going to do this thing, it's going to happen now. So I did feel that a lot. I kind of felt like a fucking loser too for a little bit. I'm going to be honest. Like, who am I? Like this guy, and it's funny. It's super funny, but like, it like, seriously, I kind of felt like a loser. Yeah. Like who am I? Like, I don't have a job now. Like, what am I telling people? I was with my parents for like a month and a half too after I got home. So that probably didn't help. I love my parents, and they were super supportive and everything, but you know, living with mom and dad for a little bit, not having like a quote real job, I felt like a little bit, I was working hard, obviously making videos, but like, yeah, it felt like a little bit of a loser. But now, I don't really feel it quite as bad now. Obviously my channel's done pretty well the last few months, but I think that if things were to like go back down, which they might, you never know with this stuff, I think I would probably feel it a little bit more. It'd probably be good though. It'd probably give me, I've been kind of in like a funk lately where I feel like I've still been like putting out content and stuff, although podcasts, I've been slacking a little bit on the podcast. Sorry everybody. But videos, I've still been putting out videos, but I don't know. I feel like I've just been kind of getting by. I don't know, but that's just how it goes. You go through ups and downs and it is what it is. And we're so lucky, dude. And it's been a lot of hard work on, like, you know, you have to work your ass off to get to a point where you're doing this full time. But like, I don't know, we're just very lucky too. And that's something I do try to think about all the time because like, man, this was my dream for a long time. This was the goal for a long time. And I'm finally here. So very, very lucky. And I guess on that note, thank you so much to everyone who listens and who watches the videos and stuff, because couldn't have done it without you guys for sure.
Yeah, YouTube is awesome to create on, isn't it? I mean, what a cool community. Like I don't have nearly as many subs as you do on there, but number one, it's like my number one favorite platform to create on. For sure. And here's the thing, man, is like I love what you do with your long form videos because like a lot of my stuff popped off with short form. But if you can create a long form video and hold retention, like you can 100% do that on a short form. And it's like, I feel like that's kind of like the pillar of, if you know how to do that, like you're just really, really good at like video editing and stuff like that. So that's awesome, man. And like the other part with YouTube is like your thumbnails are killer, bro.
Thank you. Like, I put a lot of time into them. Yeah, that's that. Whenever people ask me for YouTube advice, that's always my first thing is like, dude, put at least half the amount of time into your thumbnail that you did make in the video. Like seriously, I make probably an average of 3 thumbnails per video, and obviously you can only go with one. But like, I'll make one and I'll be like, no, it's not good enough, and I'll make another one, or I'll change it. I'll make like a bunch of variations of the same thumbnail, like maybe change the text, change the outline a little bit and stuff. Like, yeah, dude, it's. I appreciate that, dude. I put a lot of time into my stupid thumbnails.
No, dude, for sure. Like when you upload a video, right? Are you looking at the CTR, click through rate, and like in like real time, and then kind of swapping things out, or how are you doing that?
Yeah, I started doing that on the regular, anyways, a couple months ago, and that it doesn't always help, but there have been a couple times where I'll start with a thumbnail and it's not doing as well as I want, and I'll switch it, and almost instantly you'll start to notice a difference in terms of like the real-time views and stuff. It's folks, there's a lot that goes into this stuff. People think like, oh, like most people don't think this, but some people think like, oh, you just make some stupid video, make a face like you're farting or whatever, put that in the thumbnail, and then, which is kind of true, but there's a lot that goes into it. Anyways, dude, we're getting towards the end here. We gotta get back to trail stuff. I don't know. I hope people listening can understand. Like, I don't get a chance to talk to people like Chad who kind of understand this stuff very often. So, it's nice to talk about. I'm sure we could probably do like hours worth of YouTube content. Actually, I did have one more question about this real quick. This one's a little more fun. And less us complaining about our amazing jobs. Does it bother you when people call you an influencer?
Yes.
It does? Yeah. See, this is something that's always so funny because, like, I mean, I've been called everything, a YouTuber, influencer, content creator, whatever. I feel like everyone kind of has, like, a preferred name for it. But, like, 9 out of 10 times when someone refers to themselves as an influencer in a video or something, they preface it with like, oh, I hate this word, but like, I guess I'm an influencer or whatever, you know that whole spiel. So I think I thought that was kind of a funny question if it bothers you and people call you an influencer.
Yeah, it's just kind of cringy, right?
It's so like, cringe,
it's so cringe. And so I like just saying creator or content creator. That's my preferred title or label or whatever, but it is funny, dude. Like, have you ever, like, because I'm always, I'm on YouTube, Instagram, all this stuff that I'm working for brands doing this, and like I'll go and like the other day I was like doing something for updating my business insurance, and they're like, so what's your title? And I'm like, that's a great question, man. I was like, I don't know, man. I do this and that. And I was like, I don't know, outdoor media. And he's like, okay, sounds good, but it is hard to like kind of put I kind of like that too. That's kind of what I have after my name on Instagram. So yeah, I don't know, man. This, you wear a lot of hats you're, especially, when you're owning your own business, you're wearing a lot of hats of you're doing, you're making the videos, you're researching your thumbnails, you're dealing with accounting, it's a lot of stuff. So it's like, what am I guess? I don't know.
Who knows, but you're killing it. Whatever you are, dude, you're killing it. And you're doing some badass stuff out in the mountains too.
Thank you.
On that note, we're getting to the end of the episode here. We do a story at the end of these episodes. I gave Chad like a little bit of heads up, like a couple hours heads up. Not as much as I probably should have, but I'll own that. But it sounds like you have a story, yeah?
I do. I have a story. So this is, I guess, kind of about the serendipity of the trail. Okay, so you always hear about the trail's magic and this and that, right? And so here's my story around that. So in 2020, this was before the John Muir Trail, I was in Bend, Oregon, which you probably are maybe familiar with.
Yeah, I saw the Blockbuster, I saw a pizza place, a hotel, and It was very brief. But yeah, I was there for like 24 hours maybe.
Yes, awesome. So outside of Bend, Oregon, if you start going out in the desert there is like some back roads, gravel roads, whatever. And so I was driving on there, and basically what I was doing for the weekend was I was actually what's called shed hunting. So you're like looking for deer antlers that have fell from the winter.
Oh, that's cool.
It's like nice. Yeah, it's just like a giant Easter egg hunt, basically, right? for adults, I guess. But so I'm like looking around for all these things, right? And I'm like driving around, and I was like getting out and hiking, and I get to like this kind of like weird water trough in the middle of the desert, and like out pops these two people. And you can tell right away that they're thru hikers, or that they have that look, right? And you could tell they had like ultras, they had a ULA bag on. And I was like, what the heck are these guys doing out here, right? So like I rolled down the window and I'm like, hey, what's up? Like, you guys need some help? They're like, oh, like we're doing the Oregon Desert Trail, which is like it's kind of like the CDT, but like a little bit way more less unmarked or whatever. And they're like, yeah, man, I think we're going to bail. We're like prepping for the PCT this year or something, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, I was like, well, I can hitch you back to Brothers, Oregon. They're like, oh, sweet. So they like jump in my car. We're sharing stories, blah, blah, blah. And I get them to the place, whatever. And it was cool. Never saw them again. So the next year I am doing the CT. And I'm getting into our first resupply, which is in Breckenridge. And I made reservations at this hostel, which, by the way, I hate hostels. That's a whole nother story.
I do too, honestly. I like the privacy of a hotel over a hostel for sure. Oh my
God, me too. So I get in, I'm rolling into Breck. It's been like 4th, 5th day on the CT. And I go and I open the door to the hostel. And this guy's coming out at the same time. And I like look at him. I'm like, dude, did I give you a hitch to Brothers, Oregon last year? And he like looks at me, and he's like an older dude. And he's like, oh my God. So random, right? And so he was actually hiking the CT as well, randomly. Like I had no contact with this guy at all after this random escapade in the desert, right?
Yeah.
So he's the first person I see at this hostel in Colorado in Breckenridge, right? And so what was really interesting too was that night, because I had been sleeping terribly on the CT, and like terribly to the point where I was like every morning I would like wake up and I was like kind of like delirious, like just like not a lot of sleep. And so like I was thinking at this hostel I was going to have a great time and a great sleep, right? And like it's 9:00. I'm like, oh my God, nobody's going to be coming into my room. This is awesome. And then this dude walks in, smelly as hell, It's just like, oh my God. And I was like, I know he's going to snore. And he's snoring all night. And so I don't get any sleep. So anyway, the next day I wake up and I actually have coffee with this guy that I had picked up in the desert. And he was like basically a triple crowner, done all the big things. And he was giving me like some real good sage advice and stuff. And probably was a big one of the big reasons why I kept going. I mean, I still would have kept going afterwards, but like his advice really helped me.
Yeah.
So it just kind of came full circle, and it's just kind of, again, like the serendipity of the trail, where it's just like you're always down and out, and then like something happens. As long as you just hold on, like something good always happens, it seems like.
Yeah, definitely. It's such a small world. This is why you never talk shit about another hiker, folks. You never know. You'll be another state on another trail, and it'll come back around. So that is so awesome. What a small world it is, huh?
Yeah.
So awesome, dude. Well, Chad, thank you so much for coming on here, dude. This was so fun, honestly. It's been a while since I'd done one of these podcasts, like I said, and this was cool. I'd love to have you back on as well. Where can people find your stuff? I mean, you said you're all over the place. How can people find you?
Yeah, so Instagram, TikTok is Chattahoochee _, and then YouTube Chad Lubinski. And then also, if someone wants to become what I do a lot of is user-generated content for brands. If you guys want to check that out, see how to do that, I have a course available for that. So if you're ever interested in doing that, just check out the link in my bio.
Hell yeah, man. Thank you so much. That's going to do it, everybody. Thanks for listening. And I'll see you next week, most likely.